Okay, so welcome to all of our in-person and virtual participants. This is the Citizen Advisory Committee's September 27th, 2022 public meeting. This is for a discussion on Amplifund for funding and scoring. This is to familiarize our committee with the new grant management software platform, as well as to just go through what will be the scoring process for our open funding round that we just kicked off on Friday. So I know that we have a few subrecipients that may be listening in to us today. So again, I just want to reiterate our NOFA just opened on Friday. So please make sure that you are visiting our grant management software page on the city's website to see what opportunities are currently available. Just give a quick welcome to participants and procedures. Staff is going to open the discussion, and then we're going to pass it again to the chair to lead. However, this is a public meeting today. We will have no formal action, and so therefore we are not establishing a formal comment period for this. However, the public may continue to access the meeting through various ways. It's either through the Everett TV channel, as well as Everett TV's YouTube channel. And you may also call in to the public call-in number at any time if you happen to lose audio service, and that is 425-616-3920, conference ID number 724-887-726#. And then this is all, of course, always going to be available on our website for the recording after this. At this point, then I will pass it off to the chair. Chair, if you can just ask for, as we continue to admit persons into the meeting, if you can just ask for the committee to state their name, then we can at least get a record of attendance. And again, we have no need for quorum today as we have no formal action. So this is just to make an account of who is attending the meeting with us today.
Okay, thank you, Kimbra. I'm Susan Mosshart, chair for this committee. I'm present, and I don't have my list in front of me, so we could just do a free-for-all, but maybe give it a breath between who's here and who's not here.
Would you like to go with in-person committee members first?
Yes, please.
Chris Dingle here.
This presence.
Thank you.
I don't know where to look.
Oh, Samantha's right next to Matt. So Samantha, if you could just lean towards the right a little bit, then we can at least get you on camera. Up there's the corner of her head. There's her hand. Okay.
I can't see her at all. I can't see any of you. I only see Larissa.
That might be Teams, and it's a loading capacity issue. So Susan, if you continue to have that, you may need to leave the meeting and then come back into it.
Okay.
And that may revisit, or that may refresh your screen, and that's the same with Molly as well. If you're having video issues and you can't see everybody, let's get through our roll call real quick, and then you can hop off and then hop back on.
Okay.
So everybody in person has just said their name. So Chair, I'll give it back to you for virtual participants.
Okay, virtual participants, please identify yourselves.
Larissa Knopp.
Michelle Martin.
Molly Eberhardt.
Fantastic. It looks as though that might be all of our committee members today, Chair.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I will hand it back to you, Kimbra. Thank you.
I haven't identified myself yet, but Kimber Landry, Community Development Manager, and we have with us today
Nikki Doorway, Community Development Specialist.
I apologize if we're a bit fractured. We are still admitting people back into the lobby and managing the chat function with this. But I promise this will be a little bit smoother once we jump into the software. Okay.
I'm gonna leave the meeting right now and come and re-log in so that my thing works.
Okay, that sounds good. Molly, is your visual better? Wonderful. Okay, the most important.
I'll be right back.
Thank you, Sue. Thank you, Chair. The most important thing is that everybody at least has a visual of the screen that we are about to share and pull up. Again, we do appear to have some sub-recipients with us today. So I just ask that sub-recipients maintain their mics on mute Again, we are having no formal action and therefore no formal public comment period for today's meeting. We are going through the grant management software for review and scoring, and then we will also touch on some brief updates at the end of the meeting. But we are hoping that today is a nice, quick, and an easygoing meeting, and then we have a good discussion about the grant management software that we're about to launch or get into. So with that, I will then open up software. So once this figures out what we want to do, and we want this guy. Okay, so if somebody can give me a nod or a thumbs up through the Teams platform or visually, I would appreciate, or just saying, yes, you see the screen.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so this is Amplifund. What we are seeing right now is we're seeing my access to Amplifund. When we have, let me pull this up. There we go. When you log in as a committee member, you will have a similar screen. You may not have all the same functions that are listed on the left-hand side. And that is because your role is to come in and actually come in and review and score applications. We want to be mindful of not giving anybody the ability to edit anything in the system without permission to do so. And so you may see that some of this on the left-hand side is familiar to what you will see. Some of it may not be. At this point, everybody should have an invitation to Amplifund sent to their email. We ask that you please utilize that as soon as possible and log in. We do get to track who is accessing the system and who is not accessing the system. So staff will be reaching out to you if it is evident that you have not yet logged in. So please be mindful that it is important that you at least log in and become familiar with the system. I am going to act as one of the committee members. And so Chair, I apologize, but you are going to be my guinea pig. So I'm going to act as our chair today because I want all of the committee members to see what it is. I want you to see what this will look like for you every time that you come in and score an application. So the first thing that might be different is that if you were to go onto our grant management software page, the funding opportunity puts you through the applicant portal. The applicant portal is a standalone website that is separate from the actual Amplifund grant management software website. And that is because the applicant portal exists to really be a functioning component for submitting applications. The Amplifund system is meant to track an application through its process, as well as the award that is built off of the application. And so you want to be in the Amplifund system. You do not want to go into the applicant portal. If you go under your screen name, you do have you're actually limited. If it was under my account, then you could see that you could go in under applicant portal, but because you guys are members of the city, you're a CAC member, you do not have the ability to go into the applicant portal otherwise. So this should be the screen that you land on. So when you first come in, and we will give written instructions for this, when you first come in, you're going to go under award and fund management. You can access this through either one, but I would suggest that you start with award management. And when you click on that, you have the opportunity to go to fund opportunities. Fund opportunities is another way of saying what is known to us as a notice of funding availability. It is what we've put out for application to our funds. Under the fund opportunity, we have a few listed. The ones that are currently active, we have our 2022 City of Everett Human Needs Fund opportunity. That is still open because we have 2022 awards. Our 2023 CDBG non-public service opportunity is active. That is currently what was opened on Friday. You will see that you can go into this if you want to look into the basic information for the fund opportunity. You cannot change anything with it now that it has gone live, but it covers some of the basic details of the fund opportunity. And as applications come in, you can see them under the application tab. You cannot do anything with the application though, because we will get into what's called a workflow, and that is managed by city staff. And so you are limited into what you can do with the applications based on where they are in the process of the workflow. But you can at least go in and see some basic information about the opportunity. You can see how much funding's available, some of the information we've put out for applicants, expected number of awards, open dates, submission dates, things like that. So I'm going to go back to fund opportunities so I can see all my full list of fund opportunities that are available. So in addition to CDBG non-public service, we have our 2023 AHTF 2060 funds that are currently open for application. And then we also have our, CDBG 2023 public service opportunity that's currently open. Those three are the ones that are open right now for application. In addition to those, you see that there's a whole other list of funding opportunities that are available here. The 2023 Human Needs Funding Opportunity, we will be opening that at a later time, so I don't necessarily want to get too much into that at this point, only because you will see that open in sometime mid-October. But as I mentioned earlier in discussion, City Council just had action on the priorities for those. So we're happy to say that we can move forward on opening that opportunity for applications. The 2023 Home Opportunity is the other one that's available as well. The ones that are sitting here with what's called the COE test fund under income sources, those are our test opportunities that we're going to play in today. So I'm going to show you what it's going to be like for you to actually go through and score an application. Is a, what do they call it? A dummy application that's in there. There's a lot of lorem ipsum verbiage and a lot of stuff that we just threw up so that you can see what it's like to go in and score an application. For our established committee members, this may be old hat. This may be same stuff that you've seen before. However, we did take time to go in and take the rubric and the scoring that was voted on by the subcommittee and implemented by the subcommittee this year into these applications. So these are just copies of what our formal open funding opportunities are. They're just dummy accounts. So we can make this available for you to play in the next week or so. But I want to also convey that at the end of this, we're going to talk about a technical assistance workshop that city staff are going to hold specifically for committee members so that we can help you walk through getting applications through the system. We want to be able to meet with everybody. So today, we're going to kind of go into what it looks like when you're scoring an application. So right now there is a dummy application, dummy account that has been submitted under the 2023 CDBG funding opportunity. Again, I am acting as a committee member at this time, so let me move this over so that it's not blocking anybody's view. And when I again go to funding opportunities and I click on the fund opportunity that I want to score applications under, this is the general page that will come up. Details page, you can click on all of these tabs up here. You won't, the system will block you if there's anything that you can't really do, but because it's launched, there's nothing you can really edit with it anyway, so you're a little safe to play in the system. But details pages is what we're landing on right now. This is the landing page for it. Configuration is getting into how we set up our forms and our settings and our budget template, our workflow that I talked about, program funding, things like that. You can look at these, however, they cannot be edited. But really what you want to get in under is applications. The opportunity review tab, that will end up populating once we have applications moved through the scoring round. Then we will see an overview of what the opportunity review looks like. At the end of this, when we're at the end of showing you what it's like to move an application through the process, I'm going to show you the other component of this, which is that you have the ability to also look at the existing awards and utilization of funds in real time in the system. So the 2022 Human Needs awards that are currently out, they're being spent down by agencies. If it's important to you as a CAC member to take a look at somebody's past or current award in order to make a determination on what's going to be their proposal for their 2023 application, you have access to do that. We'll do that in a minute. Right now, we're still focused on just getting through the application process. So again, I clicked on the applications tab of my fund opportunity, and now I can see that there's an application that's been submitted that's waiting for me to take a look at it. When we have our formal application or formal funding opportunity, there's going to be many more than just one. Please do, for our newer committee members, please do not think that it is as easy as getting 1 or 2 applications. You will have dozens of applications to work through for this. So this is a very simplistic view of it right now. But you can see that as it is, nobody has scored this. You can see some of the basic information that's here, and you can see the application has been formally submitted. If an applicant is unable to complete their application, then the submission status would change to incomplete or something similar, so that, you know, you can see that they didn't actually get through the application round. So, without further ado, let's dive in. So as it is right now, we have, again, basic details of the application. So this is that details page. We see that the More Housing for Everett is the name of the project. I apologize. This was this is the city staff that submitted this application. So, you know, just this is where the title of the application will come up at the top. You will see, of course, what it is that they applied for. You will see the funding amount that they've requested. You will see when they submitted everything. You will see the contact information for it, basic address information. And then, of course, down here, we get an understanding of where it is in the scoring process. So the first thing that I want to make sure that you can do, or that you understand, is that when you get to this point, this is just the general landing page for the application. You can go in and look at everything that they've submitted against the application materials. But if you were to just start clicking through the application materials tab, it wouldn't give you the opportunity to score. That's because you have to go over to workflow and actually enroll it into the scoring process that you want to do. So right now, we're going to assume that I've just opened this application up. I'm a committee member. I kind of just want to understand a little bit more about the project. So I pulled up project information. That gives me basic cash information. I want to look at some of the application forms that they submitted. So when the system eventually catches up, I can now go in and say, oh, okay, so I see that they completed their application, so I can pull this up. Again, this is not going to show the ability to score it yet. This is just going to show me, you know, the application as it was filled out. And again, there's a lot of this is a dummy one, so we see a lot of, you know, lorem ipsum stuff in here. But again, I can go in here and edit this. Actually, I'll have to go in and see why we can, but you shouldn't be able to go in and access or change anything on that. This is just the ability to go in and see the actual answers as they were submitted. If I go to budget, I can see what the initial breakdown for overall request of funds was. I can see how they're going to match. They're asking for $15,000. They're going to match it with $8,000 for a total of $23,000 to support the project. I can see how they've leveraged our funds there. I can see what they're using them for. Baker. I can click on the name of the item that they're doing for supporting. Let me cancel that. So under the budget category, I can go in and click on the item that they've submitted for their budget. See the breakdown as they've provided it. They don't have to give a narrative for it, but this is worth just checking just to get more information about the proposal. I can go in and check their performance plan to see what their actual accomplishments are going to be. This particular project wants to say that they can do 45 units of housing. And then I can go in and see, okay, were there any attachments that they submitted in the application itself, as well as in the if there's any additional information that had to be gathered by staff supporting the application. That would come in under workflow attachments. The only time that we're probably going to have something under workflow attachments is if staff had to go back and ask for additional information from an applicant, and then we uploaded it in our determination of completeness or eligibility for the application. But more than likely, you're going to see everything that's actually in here under just the general attachments tab. You can click on all of these. We We can see kind of, general information for what it is that they're doing. I mean, a lot of this is for our formal application is going to include things like, again, agency budget for most recent fiscal year, upcoming fiscal year proposed budget, their IRS determination letters, articles of incorporation and bylaws. Some of these are things that are required because they're submitting for a formal federal application. Some of these are going to be things that you're going to want to look over just for, again, vetting financial security for the organization, organizational capacity for the program that they're going to implement, different factors to allow you to see, okay, I want to be able to make a good determination of award. Scorecard's going to be blank right now, only because this has not yet gone through a scoring round, but this is important to know because this is where any comments would come up. One of the things that we talked about this year that was important is for staff to provide good comments on eligibility of projects and completeness, as well as organizational capacity. And so on the scorecard is where you should see comments that come up, but also in addition under tools, we might have notes. In this particular record, I can't, because this is a dummy account, I don't think that we have anything under here, but we can also provide staff notes under here about anything that we had during meetings with the applicant or anything else that might be supportive for your determination. So finally, what we're at is that every application has to go through a workflow in the system. When an application gets through the workflow, it first starts with the staff to be able to determine whether or not the application is complete. Once it gets through completeness, then we determine eligibility. Once it gets through eligibility, then we need to determine whether or not this is a project that needs additional follow-up from staff for a meeting and a further discussion. Typically, a lot of our non-public service projects are all asked to meet with staff because of the complexity of the timeline, deliverables, federal regulations that the agency needs to be mindful of, just to, again, make sure that the awards that we're giving, because non-public service awards are for capital improvement projects, and they're typically larger awards, are going to be viable and held by the applicant in compliance with federal regulations. So once it gets to you all, it's going to be under the workflow of CAC individual review and scoring. And so your available action that's going to be under this workflow for you is limited to only one action item, and that is CAC individual review and scoring. So you're going to click on that action item, and it's going to bring up this page. And now you can formally score and get in and score the application. So again, if I'm the chair, Chair Mosshart, keep wanting to call you by your first name, Chair, I'm so sorry. But if I am acting as the chair in this sense, I can see that I have not scored, I meant to highlight that, but I have not scored any of these applications so far. This is the first time I'm touching this probably. I can see again, just kind of a basic overall summary of their project, attachments down here, and I can really start diving into the content of the application. So once I click on the application form that I want to score, and you are going to have two forms that you will need to score. The first one is going to be the narrative form, which is which in this case is a service application. Each form is actually pulled out and said which one it is. It's either narrative or attachments. You are going to be scoring your questions for review under the narrative form. You will also, though, have to acknowledge that you've gone in and scored or reviewed the attachment form. That is really just a certification question that's a yes or no question. There's no scoring value that's given to that. It's just to make sure that committee members are aware that there is a whole attachment section, and it's important for you to be able to look through that if you would like to do so. But in this sense, I am in the application form itself, and I'm going to go down, and we see that there's the general instructions and narrative that's given for the applicants and what they're given. And then we have reviewer instructions, and we go through and we see that there are specific instructions that are laid out for you to be able to review the applications. This talks about scoring a rubric. This talks about scoring categories, and it's just a breakdown of you to be able to see information that's pursuant for you to be able to score the application. You can also see now that if I go in under here, under the agency information, I no longer have the ability to play with anything. That's because we are now that I have clicked on being able to score the application, everything's now fixed. And so you will see at the bottom right corner, there's a save, a submit, and a cancel button. If you were in the middle of scoring an application, and of course you're going to be scoring many applications, so it's entirely possible that you might be cut off at some point, but please do not try to get through every application in one night. That's going to be very exhaustive for you because we have so many that'll come in. You can always save your progress in the application and come back to it. So as we go down, we see that we have basic information we can go over. We have, everything that they'll fill out. Again, some of our questions are conditional, so I would not assume that every application is going to be the same. It really depends on the organization and how they answered each question, on what questions they ended up getting. For most part, there's a similarity with every application where you're going to have, they all have to choose a priority need to fall under. They all have to make sure that they're using approved eligible activities based on the priority need. But some of that might be different. If it's an LMH activity, you might have different, by selecting LMH, your project must do this. So just know that each application might have its own nuanced conditional questions that you will need to be mindful of. As we go down, we can see basic information again. The requested award amount was just to be able to be in here so that everything could be reviewed comprehensively at the same time. This should echo what is submitted in the formal budget for the application. Standard questions on how it will be implemented at a reduced award amount, project management capacity, how the capacity of your organization to manage the proposed project and experience of the organization. We are not expecting, this was something that the subcommittee for Amplifund discussed, we are not expecting that committee members are familiar with the nuances of the agencies that we work with, but that is where staff will be able to give comment and input on organizational capacity and management of federal funds or public funding, if it happens to be human needs, for you to be able to review. Has the subrecipient done well in expenditures in the past, in timeliness spending in the past, and meeting objectives in the past? That's really the content of what we're going to be able to pass along. Okay, when we get down to project details, this is where we start to see that there's probably going to be some areas where you're going to score. And so we have project detail questions that we have: provide description with quantifiable data, describe the background or program of service which is being funding is requested, to detail how you will execute these services and how it will address the problem or need, as well as, existing community circumstances which necessitate the problem or the program that you're proposing. This is where you start to dive into your scoring. So you're going to come down, you have scoring instructions that are down here. This breaks it down in a rubric that's on this one because you're scoring 2 answers for this, a 0 to 8 scale. So you go down, you make sure that you choose a value that best fits. I think that this person really knocked it out of the park, so I'm going to give them an 8. Actually, encourage everybody to thoroughly read everything. Please do not do what I'm doing. But you have another question that's, again, going to be based on their answer below, explain detail use of funds. Again, I think they knocked this out of the park. I'm going to give them the highest score available is a 5. You'll go down for each application or each question that you have available to score, and you will only see those values on the side with the rubric that's included for it on the scores that are, or on the questions that are eligible for scoring. You have 5 questions that you are going to score. Each is going to give a value of 25, I believe. I think that one of these questions has where's my 2? One of these has a value of 2, and it's this one. And this one actually, that value has been changed in the regular one that was launched, but not in this one. So this one will only go up to 2 to mitigate for the question that has a value of 8. We're going to get a total of 25 at the end. And at the end of scoring everything, you're going to go through and say, okay, everything else looks good. And now I want to formally submit, before I formally submit, any other final comments to provide? This application looked great. Can't wait to see the service in the community. This comment is going to be submitted and now is part of the formal record for the application. It's important for you to know that because these are federal applications. They establish federal nexus. This is also all open for public disclosure. So please be mindful of the comments that you provide into the system. Please be aware this is part of our formal records keeping for the city. But you're more than welcome to input comments on your review for this application. And when you are ready, you can save, just to be mindful that, of course, you want to make sure that you're constantly looking at saving your progress and anything. And then when you're actually ready to formally submit, you will go in and then press submit. Once you press submit on the application, you cannot go back and change your scores at all. Once you press submit, it is submitted. It is a final score that you are giving it. And the system will make sure that you are reminded of that, and then it will have some weird occurrence, and then you will accept that, and then now it has been scored by you. Again, I can now no longer go in and change any of my scores that I submitted previously. So you will go in and score each application through that process. Again, there's only 5 questions for each application, so we try to make this as easy as possible for our committee members, but every question values either community need and response to community need or community engagement. How the organization partners with others, how they, work to collaborate in approaching DEI principles, a whole range of things that you need to be mindful of when you're actually looking at reviewing the applications. The one I'm going to dive into again also is the application attachments section, only because that one again does not have a score. But that is instead, you're going to come down and say that, where is it? I confirm I have reviewed these attachments for my review. Yes. Look good. You don't have to provide a comment, but you can if you want. And then all you have to do is just confirm that you've reviewed the application. And then you're done with that application. The other thing that's kind of weird about this test one is that there is a non-service application in here. After staff went through and did our own testing of the process, we realized that we had to split our service and our non-service funding opportunity, only because if we kept it under the same funding opportunity, applicants would have to go in and fill out every application regardless of the nature of their proposal. And that was not the route that we needed to take. So you will see that's why we have a split public service opportunity and a split non-public service opportunity. So when you go in to score, you only have 2 application forms to score: the narrative section of the application and the attachment section of the application. Once I've submitted my scores and once everything's in here, then I go back to my workflow. And I can click on that again. It should kind of refresh the page for me, but then you're technically done, because your ability to move the process through or application through the workflow even more than this is restricted. Staff will then go in and put the application into the public hearing meeting queue where it will be held. And that's where all applications that have been scored are just going to be in pending until we get through the public hearing. The one thing that probably is beneficial for you to see also is that after you submit your scores, you will still not see a scorecard. And that's because it was important that we didn't allow for any bias of anybody else's scores to affect your review of the application. So this will stay blank until the application is through the process and it's been awarded, and we've closed the application round and the public hearing round. Okay, let me shift gears here. So after you score an application, you're done. No more else or nothing else that you need to do. For you to go back to the other applications, then you'd go back to the regular funding opportunity and have to go and reopen the fund opportunity again. I wish there was an easier way to kind of kick it back to the applications that were submitted, but it's not. You have to go back to the funding opportunity and then click on the application tab. The other thing that I want to make available to the committee is, again, this awards component that I think I mentioned earlier. So again, if you are looking at the 2023 Human Needs funding round, we have not done this with our federal funds, and so you cannot do this for anybody that's asking for CDBG, home, or HTF funds, but you can do this for human needs opportunities. You can go back and see, okay, well, if I have, I'm so sorry to pick on them, but Housing Hope is looking to apply again for another for human needs funding opportunity in 2023. I can go in and see how they're doing on their current award. Some things about this screen that are just good to know. I can click on the name of the lead recipient, but that's not going to show me the award. I'm going to pull that up in a separate tab. I can click on the human needs funding source, but again, that's not going to show me the award. You have to click on this teeny little button that's the $sign, and that will actually formally show you the award on how that agency is doing in their current award and spend down. Again, if you were to click on just the name Housing Hope, this is what comes up. It's just the organizational information that was included in the award shell. It's not going to even give you the actual award. It gives you then contact information, relationships, and tools under that organization. And then if you were to click on the funding source, then it takes you to, again, the actual funding source. It does not take you to the award. So make sure you click on that icon, and then it will bring up the actual award details, which is probably what you're going to want to look at. You can look and see just on this basic landing page where everyone's at. So to date, this agency has spent down out of their $15,000 award, $11,799. You can dive into that if you want to see what they've spent it on. You can see that there's invoice to date, and then there's approved and pending. The difference between that is that there may have been an instance where they tried to submit something and we're still working with them on background information for documentation of those expenditures or acceptance of the pay request, or maybe there is an issue with their reporting period that's tied to it. Every time that a subrecipient enters expenses, they have to let us know what they spent that on and how many and what the accomplishments were to meet those expenses. So it's entirely possible that there's a delay with that, but this should be able to give you a snapshot of where somebody is in their current expenditure for their current human needs award. You can go in and look at different aspects of this if you want, if you're interested in it. Again, pre-award's going to look at what they submitted in the application process for everything that they were looking at. Post-award is looking at, okay, you know, what's their budget now for this award? How are they doing in their performance plan? Generally, have they done with, you know, submitting everything else? I would not encourage CAC members to get into the cash flow payment request function, only because that's a staff function for approval of reimbursements. I'm also going to ask that you guys not play with the settings function as well. But you can at least go in here and look at, you know, how they do on their reporting periods, how are they doing with submitting for performance reports, how are they doing with doing for their budget expenditures. You can go in and see that award information for the current active awards that we have. Right now, that I think that's enough information to kind of overwhelm everybody at the moment. This has taken a little bit, 10 minutes longer than I thought that it would. There are additional functions for the system that I don't want to diminish at all, but I think it's important that we get into them another time, and that includes reporting functions. We are working with Amplifund on generating the ability to have the city's really focused on what's called an open data portal for a lot of our IT functions right now, which would allow for anybody in the public to pull any kind of information they want to out of the system and make their own reports. If they wanted to see how many housing programs are spending or have money dedicated to them and how many people benefit, they could do that. Or if they want to see every single award that community development gives out, the entire comprehensive list of subrecipients and the award amounts. So we're still in an active contract with Amplifund to massage the reporting metrics for it. But everything that's listed in here is what's available for public viewing and especially, or what will be available for public viewing and especially right now, what is available for CAC review for you to be able to make your determinations with the upcoming application round. Okay, I feel like I've exhausted myself in talking. I feel like I've exhausted everyone's attention span and going through a very technical software, but at this point, I will give it back to the chair to see if there's any questions or anything on any of this, to open up for committee members, and then get into the next agenda item.
Okay. If you have a question, could you raise your hand on the feature for Teams, and I will call on you as Michelle.
Yes, my question is, it looks like, you might be spending quite a bit of time in there going back and forth between the actual application and the scoring function. Can you leave the scoring function, go out, come back in, and then leave that without submitting it so that your work is in progress?
Yeah, no, very good question. Yes, you can. And that's where that save button occurs. That being said, that's only, I mean, if you're at a point where you've gone through an application and you're looking at, information and someone's talking about a reduced amount, for example, for their award and how they would implement it, and you're going, man, I just looked at the budget, but I really want to revisit what those budget categories are to be able to adequately see how they're responding to a reduced function. You can do that, but as soon as you want to start putting values to the scores, I strongly encourage that you press that save button as much as you can, only because as you continue to come in and out, every time that you do that, if you don't save your progress, it will wipe all the scores you've submitted until you formally submit your score at that fixed value that you're willing to put in. So, but good question, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Does anybody else have a question?
Yes, we have a committee member in person that does.
Okay.
So one of my questions is for the expense reports that the applicants give us, what's the turnover for that before we can make that public information?
So let me make sure I understand. So anything that's submitted for federal application, for any of our public applications, is all subject to public disclosure. It's until when somebody formally submits an application, especially for this funding round, that will establish federal nexus. So as soon as it's submitted into the system, it would be available for public disclosure.
For example, if we gave an organization $10,000 and they spent $7,000 of it, as soon as they submit expenses, that immediately becomes viewable.
Oh, so you're talking about the actual established awards, not the application part. Okay, yeah. So the established awards right now, all of that is all of our work's open to public disclosure requests for it. We are working to try and get that to actually be part of the open data portal. We're looking to try and make it so that it's not, you don't have to go through a public disclosure request to try and access that information for the public. We want to try and get that handled in the next month, but of course I'm kind of speaking on behalf of the contractor at this point. It's kind of, I have to wait until Amplifund can make that accommodation for us. It's part of the scope that we are currently working with, in our current contract with them. That's part of that work. So they will have to make this work for us. And I'm hoping that that's going to be done before the end of this year. But right now, if anybody were to have any questions on that, they would just need to ask staff, and then we'd be able to actually make that information available or go through the public disclosure request function of the clerk's office. But ideally in the future, that's going to be something that's just out there on the city's website and available for people to extrapolate on their own. A good question.
Yes.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, come on.
So another question, the community member built reports that Amplifund is going to allow them to create.
Yeah.
Do we have a big enough audience of people that are actually wanting to make those reports? Is that gonna be something that does that trump anything, and does that pull away from any of our priorities?
That's a good question. The wonderful thing about that is that gets to all be handled by IT.
Okay.
And the city's disclosure for information and our compliance with our work to be more transparent with the work that we're doing. Luckily enough, all of that's kind of out of community development's hands. So it doesn't distract from anything that we're doing. It just makes it more available for the public to be able to disseminate the information. But that being said, I mean, it's not just, our public. I mean, it'd be something that if somebody in New York wanted to pull, comparative metrics for how a comparative sizable city is doing with their community development funding, they could pull that and look at how many awards we give out to our community and stuff. So, I mean, it's information that's out there for internet consumption, I think, for better or worse is the lack of term for that one. So yes, it's an effort that's led by IT right now. So.
All right, sounds good. That's what I remember right now.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions? If not, I'm going to turn it back over to Kimbra.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Okay, so I think that the most important thing that we want to do now is really just kind of convey that I'm going to put the committee on the spot right now. And this is going to be just a brief moment of uncomfortableness, and then I'm going to pull us back all together. But last year, when we launched Amplifund, we did not have consistent review by committee members. And we have got to adhere to that this year. Everybody on the committee should be logging in and reviewing applications and scoring applications. I will say that the staff has built in a fail-safe in case that does not occur. But it is my strongest hope that that's not that we don't have to use that, because of course we want to honor the work that the applicants did in submitting these applications. And we want to honor the work that the community partners are doing. And this is their chance to make their proposal, their projects and their work known to the city, to the other community partners that are out there. And so we want to do our best to, again, respect and honor that. And so again, I ask that every single committee member do your best to get into the system and review every single application. I know that we don't have all committee members on the call today, but don't worry, staff is going to be reaching out to everybody individually, and we look forward to establishing technical assistance workshops with every single committee member. It is our goal this year that staff will be meeting with every committee member on using Amplifund. That could be a 10-minute conversation and you going, yep, I get everything. I was there for the training. I watched the videos. I get it. Or that could be you sitting down going, I'd really like to at least hold space in your conference room to get through the questions. And if I need to be able to pull you for any kind of immediate technical assistance, I can do so. The staff are willing to make accommodations for what we need to make sure that the committee has the ability to appropriately get through all applications. The week of October 10th, so now I'm getting into some of my next steps. The week of October 10th is what we are holding. Let me just make sure I rattle that off and then, yeah. Week of October 10th is what we are holding as an open house for CAC members to work with staff for technical assistance and working through the Amplifund system. So again, during that week, please expect that staff are going to be reaching out for you for anywhere from a brief to a lengthy conversation on navigating you through Amplifund. If anybody is interested in coming to the Everett Municipal Building to conduct your scoring, if you want to take the initiative to take a full day off and come and hang out with city staff and hang out in the hearing examiner room and knock through some applications, you're more than welcome to. Yeah, who isn't prepared to do that? If that is really if you are interested in doing that, I have two caveats, and that is the first one is that you cannot have open discussion with your other committee members on what their scores were, what their input is on the applications. You are meant to do this without bias or influence from your other committee members. That is what the public hearing is for. That is where we get into those discussions. The other thing is that we cannot have quorum. because otherwise we were needing to go out for public meeting and doing all of that. This is meant to just give you space to be able to work through any technical issues. So if we end up having more than a handful of people that need to gather in the room, we're probably going to move you to another day or try and find another time that works best for you to come in and get for technical assistance. I'm not going to say that staff is going to immediately reject anybody if you can't meet us during that week, but that's the week we've been putting out for technical assistance for months now. That's what I'm hoping everyone's built time in for. And again, this is so early in the process that I'm really hoping that everybody feels like you can adequately get through all the applications that we're going to have without pressure of having to do it at a last minute effort. Because again, for those of us that are new to this process, it will be intensive. I breezed through this application just because I happen to know the applicant, but this is going to be something that when you're new to these agencies, and a lot of this year, it's been an interesting funding year. You know, we have a lot of new agencies that are in the community that are looking to seek public funding that may not have come to us before. So it's worth reading through and being familiar with every organization. They also now, we changed the field. So that was something that if you've done this before, you might be familiar that in the past, we've had discussions on how to best get to know applicants. And we've talked about various ways of doing that. But this year, one of the things we built into the system is if anybody wants to hyperlink to their Facebook page for the organization, to their, you know, photo stream of whatever it is that they have, or, you know, doing anything like that, it doesn't take up the character limit for any of the answers, but then it does allow for committee members to go in and be able to pull up additional information that the organization has submitted in their application. So be mindful that somebody may have embedded a link to their social media or some of their efforts or a PowerPoint presentation that really conveyed a really good project that they had. So again, be mindful of the content of the application that you're going through. We have a committee member question, so I'm going to pause my
Writing that
Wordiness.
same way. If they did post a hyperlink embedded anywhere in their application, where primarily would that be found?
So it's probably going to be in the narrative application, in the actual narrative of the answers that they're giving for each question. And so that's why I'm saying that just make sure that, you know, if you've seen one public benefit question and answer, it is not that you've seen them all. It is that everybody might answer a question differently and address the question differently. And so again, just be mindful that, I mean, you know, you might have to scroll through an answer and make sure you're going through the entire answer to really capture all the information that the applicant gave you for review. Woo! Yes, yes. So again, just driving home the point, 100% participation is what we're looking for this year. So I'm really happy to have that happen, and I'm looking forward to everybody coming and meeting with us on the 10th. Okay. I'm going to pass it over to Vicki for other updates.
Okay, just a couple things about scheduling. So the good news is you get to ease into the review and scoring in Amplifund because we are doing the federal and state applications first. We typically don't have as many of those, although we are reviewing home, AHTF, and CDBG. But it's a little bit, you know, it's not as many as you will get when we do human needs scoring. But we're looking at October 31st to November 9th is when the CAC will be reviewing the federal and state applications in Amplifund. And then we have the public hearing for federal and state funding recommendations on November 15th. So that's the first one. If our schedule for human needs, we haven't announced the notice of funding availability for human needs applications yet. We're targeting mid-October. If everything comes together as planned, then November 16th through December 5th, the CAC would be reviewing and scoring human needs applications in Amplifund. So you're getting more time, but it is kind of during Thanksgiving and holidays. We know that can be a busy time. But that's when you'll have the human needs applications. So you're getting more time for human needs because there's usually, I mean, I think we had, I don't know, 25-ish applications this
Last
past
year,
year.
yeah.
So that's just a couple of dates. The hearing for human needs funding recommendations, I think you all have the links to that. It's December 13th. So just a couple things to put in your calendar and just kind of keep in the back of your mind as far as time frame for review and score.
Could you repeat the dates really quickly?
Yes. So let's see, reviewing and scoring for federal and state applications, October 31st to November 9th. And then the hearing is on the 15th for federal and state funding recommendations. And then if everything goes as planned with human needs, it's not official until the NOFA is out and everything, but we're looking at November 16th through December 5th. For the CAC review and scoring of human needs applications in Amplifund, with the hearing on the 13th of December. The reason there's a little lag is that Kimbra and I need to be able to kind of tally all the scores and synthesize the information for the committee public hearing on the funding recommendations for both those, well, all of those funding sources. That was my 2 cents.
Thank you.
Okay, Chair, I think that that's all the updates that we had, so we're gonna give it back to you. Up.
Michelle?
A quick question. Are there any system requirements for Amplifund, you know, in terms of what type of computer platform or any of that?
Good question. Yeah, we ended up giving out a lot of this information for our applicants. Didn't even occur to me that we need to also pass this along to you guys. So yeah, so I'd be happy to tell you some of the things that work best with Amplifund. Your latest version of Firefox, Chrome is all available. Edge, Microsoft Internet Explorer, I think is still eligible, but it has to be version 11 or more, or newer. Safari would work. But that has to be the newest version as well. And I think that there's 4 or 5 total. So any of those platforms is fine. Just make sure that you have the latest version of everything that's available for using Amplifund. And then the only other thing, I guess it's the technical thing, is that all applications have been submitted, materials been requested through PDF. And so if anybody, you know, is having trouble looking at the PDF versions of the documents, let us know, and staff can try and figure out another way to get it to you. But that seemed to be the easiest platform for submission upload. So that's what we went with.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, I think without any further ado, we could adjourn our meeting. Thank you so much for the presentation, and I look forward to working on these applications.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Thank you for our sub-recipients that were sitting in the background silently and listening. And I look forward to seeing everybody the week of the 10th. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.